The sun hammered down on the Nevada desert like a blacksmith's anvil, turning the asphalt into a shimmering river of heat. Jason Statham gripped the steering wheel of his midnight black Dodge Charger, his knuckles white against the leather. The engine roared beneath the hood, a mechanical beast hungry for distance. He had been driving for 6 hours straight, pushing through the wasteland of scrub brush and rock formations that stretched endlessly in every direction. His phone buzzed in the cup holder, but he ignored it. The messages had been coming non-stop since he left Los Angeles before dawn. His agent, his publicist, his lawyer, everyone wanted answers about why he had suddenly disappeared from the set of his latest action film. They wanted explanations, apologies, promises of return. But Jason had no answers to give them. Not yet. The only thing that mattered was reaching Phoenix before nightfall. His daughter Sarah was in trouble, the kind of trouble that required a father's presence, not a phone call or wire transfer. The highway stretched ahead like a gray ribbon cutting through the copper-colored landscape. Traffic was sparse out here, just the occasional 18-wheeler hauling goods across state lines and families in minivans escaping the city heat. Jason welcomed the emptiness. It gave him time to think, to plan what he would say when he finally saw Sarah face to face. She had fallen in with a dangerous crowd, people who dealt in substances that destroyed lives and futures. The last message from her had been cryptic and frightening. "Dad, I made a mistake. They won't let me leave." He pressed harder on the accelerator, watching the speedometer climb past 90. The desert blurred past his windows, rock formations becoming abstract paintings of red and orange. His mind drifted to memories of Sarah as a little girl, her laughter echoing through their London flat, her small hand gripping his finger as they walked through Hyde Park. He had missed so much of her childhood because of his career, always jetting off to some exotic location to film fight sequences and car chases. The irony wasn't lost on him. He played heroes on screen, but when his own daughter needed saving, he had been thousands of miles away, pretending to punch bad guys. The GPS indicated another hour to Phoenix. Jason calculated the timeline in his head. Sarah's last known location was an apartment complex on the south side of the city, a neighborhood where police sirens were background music and hope went to die. He had contacts there, people who owed him favors from his younger days before Hollywood came calling. They would help him extract Sarah, get her somewhere safe where she could detox and heal. A sign appeared on the roadside, "Rest area, 2 miles." Jason considered stopping, splashing water on his face, grabbing coffee from a vending machine. But something told him to keep moving, to maintain momentum. Every minute counted. His daughter was waiting, trapped in a situation that grew more dangerous with each passing hour. The landscape began to change subtly. The flat desert gave way to gentle hills dotted with Joshua trees, their twisted branches reaching toward the cloudless sky like desperate prayers. The temperature gauge on the dashboard showed 103 degrees outside, but inside the car, Jason felt cold. Fear had a way of chilling the blood, even in the middle of summer. He thought about calling ahead, warning his contacts that he was close. But phone calls could be traced, intercepted. Better to arrive unannounced, to maintain the element of surprise. In his years of filming action movies, he had learned real tactics from military advisors and former intelligence operatives. Those lessons had seemed like professional research at the time, but now they felt like preparation for this exact moment. The highway curved slightly, following the contour of a rocky hillside. Jason leaned into the turn, his body moving instinctively with the car's motion. Years of stunt driving had made these movements second nature. The Charger responded beautifully, its suspension absorbing the imperfections in the road, its engine purring with controlled power. Then he saw them. 3 vehicles sat parked across both lanes of the highway, forming a crude but effective barrier. 2 pickup trucks flanked a rusty cargo van, creating a wall of metal and malicious intent. Jason's foot moved instinctively toward the brake pedal, but his eyes caught the details that transformed concern into alarm. Men stood beside the vehicles, 7 of them, maybe 8. They weren't highway maintenance workers or stranded motorists in need of assistance. These men had the bearing of predators, their postures aggressive and territorial. Jason's training kicked in before conscious thought could catch up. He assessed the situation in milliseconds, his mind processing information like a tactical computer. The men wore mismatched clothing, tank tops, jeans, boots caked with desert dust. but they moved with coordination, fanning out in a practice formation that suggested military or gang experience. 2 held baseball bats. Another casually displayed a tire iron. The weapons weren't concealed or apologetic. They were announcements, promises of violence. The distance closed rapidly. Jason's Charger ate up the highway at 90 miles per hour, and the blockade loomed larger with each heartbeat. His mind raced through possibilities. This could be random. Desert bandits preying on lone travelers, stripping cars for parts, robbing anyone foolish enough to stop. But the timing felt wrong, too coincidental. He had left L.A. in secret, told no one except a single trusted friend about his destination. Had someone leaked his route? Were these men connected to the people holding Sarah? A tall figure stepped forward from the group, raising his hand in a stopping gesture. The universal signal for halt, for compliance, for submission. His face was hidden behind reflective sunglasses, but his body language radiated authority. This was the leader, the one who gave orders and expected obedience. The other men watched the approaching Charger with hungry eyes, like wolves spotting a wounded deer. Jason's phone buzzed again, but this time he glanced at the screen. Unknown number. The message preview made his blood freeze. Stop the car or Sarah dies. His hands tightened on the wheel until his knuckles cracked. They knew. Somehow, impossibly, they knew exactly where he was and where he was going. This wasn't random highway robbery. This was a trap, carefully baited and precisely timed. The speedometer still read 85. The distance to the blockade now less than 200 yards. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. Jason's Hollywood experience had prepared him for choreographed fight scenes and carefully planned stunts. But this was reality. Real weapons, real danger, real consequences. If he stopped, they would drag him from the car. Best case scenario, they would rob him and leave him stranded. Worst case, he didn't let himself complete that thought. He scanned the roadside desperately. To the right, a steep embankment dropped away into rocky terrain studded with cacti and boulders. To the left, a wall of rock face rose 30 feet high. Impossible. The highway offered no escape routes, no convenient exits or side roads. Just 2 lanes of asphalt between natural barriers, with 8 men and 3 vehicles blocking the only path forward. The leader made another gesture, more insistent this time. Several men moved to reinforce the barrier, placing themselves between the vehicles as human obstacles. They believed their presence would force compliance, that the threat of running them down would make any driver break and surrender. They hadn't accounted for desperation or determination. They didn't know that Jason had already calculated the cost of stopping and found it unacceptable. 100 yards. The Charger's engine growled, sensing the tension in Jason's body through the pressure of his foot on the accelerator. He could see faces now, details emerging from the glare and distance. Young men mostly, early 20s, with the hardened expressions of people who had lived rough lives. One smiled, revealing gold teeth that caught the sunlight. Another cracked his knuckles, anticipating violence. 50 yards. Jason made his decision. His daughter's life hung in the balance, and these men were either part of the threat or an obstacle to reaching her. Either way, they stood between him and Sarah, and that made them the enemy. He had played action heroes for 2 decades, but this moment required him to become one. No director would yell cut. No stunt coordinator would ensure everyone's safety. This was real, and everything depended on the next 30 seconds. His foot pressed down hard on the accelerator, instead of moving to the brake. The Charger surged forward, its engine note rising to a battle cry. Jason's eyes locked onto a gap between the cargo van and the left pickup truck, a space barely wider than his vehicle. It was possible, barely, if he hit it at the right angle and the right speed. The risk was enormous: collision, rollover, death. But stopping meant certain capture, and capture meant failure. The men's expressions changed as they realized the Charger wasn't slowing down. 25 yards separated Jason from the makeshift barricade when understanding dawned on the faces of the men blocking the road. The casual confidence evaporated, replaced by shock and then panic. The leader's hand dropped from its commanding position as his mouth opened in a shout that Jason couldn't hear over the roar of his engine. 2 men on the flanks began running, abandoning their posts in search of safety. The others froze, caught between the instinct to stand their ground and the survival impulse screaming at them to move. Jason's world narrowed to a tunnel of focus intensity. The gap between the van and pickup truck measured approximately 7 feet across. His Charger was 6.5 feet wide, 18 inches of clearance total, 9 inches on each side. At highway speed, with no room for error, the mathematics of survival became brutally simple. One wrong twitch of the steering wheel meant collision, twisted metal, and catastrophic failure. But the alternative was surrender, and that option had ceased to exist the moment he received the text message about Sarah. The leader finally moved, diving toward the pickup truck's bed in a desperate scramble for cover. Another man threw his baseball bat at the approaching vehicle in a futile gesture of defiance. The wooden bat struck the Charger's reinforced grille and splintered, pieces cartwheeling away into the desert air. Jason didn't flinch. His eyes remained locked on the gap, his hands making micro-adjustments to the steering wheel that would determine whether he lived or died in the next 3 seconds. 10 yards. The Charger's front bumper aligned perfectly with the opening. Jason could see rust patterns on the cargo van side panel, could read the faded bumper stickers on the pickup truck. Time compressed into crystalline clarity where every detail became hyper-real and significant. A crack in the van's windshield resembled a spider web. The pickup's front tires showed worn treads on the verge of illegal boldness. These observations registered and disappeared in the fraction of a second. Background data his brain collected while his hands executed the precision driving that years of stunt work had ingrained into muscle memory. 5 yards. The men scattered like startled birds, their formation collapsing into chaos as a black Charger bore down on them with unwavering commitment. Jason caught a glimpse of the leader's face, no longer hidden behind sunglasses. The man's eyes showed something between rage and disbelief, the expression of someone watching their carefully laid plan disintegrate in real time. Impact. The Charger's side mirrors folded back instantly as Jason threaded the needle between the two vehicles. Metal screamed against metal, paint transferring in bright streaks as a passenger side scraped along the pickup truck. The sound was catastrophic, like the world tearing itself apart, but the car maintained forward momentum. Jason's teeth clenched as he felt resistance, the Charger's wide body fighting against the narrow passage. For one terrible heartbeat, he thought the car would wedge itself between the vehicles, becoming stuck and vulnerable. Then they were through. The mirrors snapped back into position automatically. The scraping stopped. The Charger burst free from the blockade like a bullet emerging from a gun barrel, slightly worse for wear but functionally intact. Jason's heart hammered against his ribs, adrenaline flooding his system with electric intensity. He had done it, had gambled everything on a gap barely wider than his vehicle and won. The rearview mirror showed chaos behind him. Men scrambling, shouting, pointing. The leader was already moving toward one of the pickup trucks, clearly intending pursuit. Jason pressed the accelerator to the floor, and the Charger responded with enthusiasm, its powerful engine launching the vehicle forward with renewed urgency. The speedometer climbed past 100, the desert landscape becoming an abstract blur of color and motion. But celebration was premature. The mirror showed the pickup truck lurching forward, its engine roaring to life with surprising speed. These men weren't giving up, weren't accepting defeat. They had been hired or ordered to stop him, and failure likely carried consequences. The truck accelerated hard, its modified engine suggesting preparation for exactly this scenario. Within seconds, it was gaining ground, eating into the lead Jason had established. The highway remained straight for another mile before curving into the hills. Jason needed distance, needed time to think and plan. The Charger was faster, but the pickup had momentum and desperation. Behind it, he could see the second pickup truck joining the chase, headlights flashing in an aggressive pattern that communicated pure hostility. What had been one problem had multiplied into two, and Jason was running out of road. His mind raced through options while his hands maintained the Charger's breakneck pace. He could outrun them if the highway remained straight and clear, but that was uncertain. The GPS showed curves ahead, terrain that would slow his superior speed. He could try to reach Phoenix and lose them in city traffic, but that was still 40 minutes away even at maximum velocity. 40 minutes was an eternity with armed pursuers breathing down his neck. He could call the police, but what would he tell them? That he had just run a blockade and was being chased by men who might be connected to his daughter's captors? That would trigger investigations, delays, questions he couldn't afford to answer while Sarah remained in danger. The first pickup truck closed within 100 yards, the driver clearly skilled and fearless. Jason could see faces in the truck's cab. 3 men, all focused forward with predatory intensity. The passenger window rolled down, and an arm emerged holding something dark and angular. Jason's stomach clenched as recognition hit. Not a baseball bat or tie iron this time. A gun. They had escalated, and suddenly the stakes weren't just about escape anymore. The first shot shattered Jason's rear window in an explosion of safety glass that cascaded across the back seat like diamonds catching sunlight. The sound was deafening even over the roar of wind and engines, a sharp crack that transformed the chase from dangerous to deadly. Jason ducked instinctively while maintaining his grip on the steering wheel, his body moving on pure survival instinct honed by years of fight choreography that suddenly felt horrifyingly inadequate for the real thing. Another shot punched through the trunk, the impact transmitting through the car's frame as a metallic thunk. These men weren't shooting to disable the vehicle, they were shooting to kill. The realization crystallized in Jason's mind with terrible clarity. This wasn't intimidation or warning fire. They wanted him dead, wanted him stopped permanently, which meant Sarah's captors had decided that a living father was more dangerous than a dead one. The thought filled him with rage that burned hotter than the Nevada sun. The highway curved right, following the contour of a rocky hillside painted in shades of rust and copper. Jason took the turn at 90 miles per hour, feeling the Charger's suspension compress and the tires scream in protest. The car stayed glued to the asphalt through a combination of engineering excellence and desperate prayer. Behind him, the lead pickup truck matched the maneuver with surprising grace, its driver clearly experienced in high-speed pursuit. The second pickup had fallen back slightly, struggling to keep pace with its counterpart. Jason's tactical mind registered this as potentially useful information. Two pursuers meant divided attention, split resources. If he could separate them further, create distance, he might find an opportunity to escape. But first, he needed to survive the immediate threat of bullets punching through metal and glass. The GPS showed a series of curves ahead, switchbacks that climbed into the hills before descending toward the outskirts of Phoenix. Difficult terrain for maintaining high speed, but also difficult for accurate shooting. Jason made a decision, jerking the wheel hard left and then right in an unpredictable serpentine pattern. The Charger weaved across both lanes, turning him into a moving target rather than a stationary one. Another shot rang out, this one missing entirely and sparking off the asphalt 10 feet to his right. The lead pickup truck closed the gap to 50 yards, its engine growling with mechanical determination. Jason could see the shooter now, a young man with a shaved head and tattoos crawling up his neck like dock vines. He leaned half out of the passenger window, one arm wrapped around the door frame for stability while the other aimed a semi-automatic pistol with practiced ease. Not a random thug, Jason realized. This man had training, discipline, experience. The shots weren't wild spray and pray. They were aimed, calculated attempt to end the chase permanently. The highway climbed into the first real curve, banking hard to the left as elevation increased. Jason accelerated into it, using the Charger's superior handling to take the racing line that maximized speed while minimizing risk. The pickup followed but couldn't match the precision, its higher center of gravity forcing the driver to slow or risk rolling. Jason gained 20 precious yards, distance that felt like a small victory in a battle he was slowly losing. His phone buzzed again. Jason wanted to ignore it, needed to focus entirely on driving and survival. But the possibility that it was another message about Sarah made his hand dart toward the cup holder. He grabbed the phone without looking at the road, a moment of divided attention that nearly proved fatal. When his eyes snapped back forward, a massive semi-truck occupied his lane, crawling up the hill at 40 miles per hour with the patience of something too large to fear ordinary danger. Jason's reflexes saved him. He yanked the wheel right, taking the Charger across the oncoming lane and onto the narrow shoulder that separated asphalt from a steep embankment. Gravel sprayed from his tires as the car drifted within inches of the edge, where a mistake meant tumbling hundreds of feet down rocky terrain that would shred metal and flesh with equal indifference. He threaded between the semi-truck's passenger side and oblivion, his mirrors folding back again as the gap proved almost impossibly tight. The pickup truck wasn't as fortunate or skilled. Its driver attempted the same maneuver but miscalculated, clipping the semi-truck's rear wheels with a grinding crash that sent both vehicles into chaotic motion. The truck driver hit his brakes instinctively, causing the trailer to jackknife slightly. The pickup spun out, its rear end swinging wide across both lanes before slamming into the rock face on the opposite side of the highway. Steam erupted from its crumpled hood, and the chase vehicle ground to a halt, disabled but not destroyed. Jason's mirror showed the scene receding as he powered forward, one pursuer down. But the second pickup had navigated around the wreckage and was accelerating hard, its driver learning from his companion's mistake. This truck was different, newer, faster, with a supercharged engine that announced its presence with a distinctive whine. The gap began closing again, 50 yards becoming 40, becoming 30 as the modified truck unleashed its full potential. The phone screen glowed in the cup holder, forgotten in the chaos. Jason snatched it up during a brief straight section, risking a half-second glance. The message made his blood run cold. "You should have stopped. Now she pays." Below the text was a photo that punched through his chest like a bullet. Sarah, bound to a chair in a dark room, her face bruised and tear-streaked, eyes wide with terror that no father should ever witness in their child. Rage and fear collided in Jason's mind, creating a chemical reaction that sharpened his focus into something beyond human. His hands stopped shaking. His breathing steadied. The professional training from 20 years of action films merged with parental desperation to create something dangerous and unstoppable. These men wanted to hurt his daughter. They had already hurt her, and they stood between him and rescuing her. The modified pickup roared up alongside his passenger side, matching his speed and positioning aggressively. Jason saw the driver clearly now, an older man with gray beard, cold eyes, and the calm expression of someone comfortable with violence. Their eyes met through the windows for a brief moment, and understanding passed between them. This was no longer about stopping Jason or delivering him to employers. This had become personal, a matter of pride and reputation. Two alphas locked in deadly competition with only one possible outcome. The modified pickup truck swerved hard into the Charger's side, metal grinding against metal in a shower of sparks that painted the highway with brief consolations. Jason gritted his teeth and held his line, refusing to be forced toward the embankment. The impact rocked the car but didn't break his control. Years of stunt driving had taught him how to maintain composure during controlled crashes, and this was no different except for the very real possibility of death. They were descending now, the highway dropping through switchbacks toward the valley where Phoenix sprawled in the distance like a promise of civilization and safety. But safety was still 30 miles away, and the man in the pickup truck showed no signs of relenting. He rammed the Charger again, harder this time, and Jason felt his rear wheels break traction momentarily. The car wobbled, threatened to spin, but Jason corrected with precise steering inputs that brought everything back under control. The tactical situation was clear and brutal. The modified truck was heavier, more powerful, and driven by someone with professional training. In a straight fight, prolonged contact, or war of attrition, Jason would lose. The Charger's damaged rear end and shattered windows were testaments to accumulated damage that would eventually prove critical. He needed to change the equation, find an advantage that superior equipment and training couldn't overcome. The highway straightened briefly before the next curve, and the pickup pulled alongside again. This time, instead of ramming, the driver gestured urgently. The meaning was clear. Pull over, give up, surrender. Compliance meant safety for Jason, possibly, but certain doom for Sarah. Non-compliance meant continuing this deadly dance until one of them made a fatal mistake. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Jason shook his head slowly, deliberately, making sure the other driver saw the refusal. Then he did something that violated every instinct for self-preservation. He tapped his brakes, letting the pickup pull slightly ahead. The other driver's eyes widened in confusion. Was Jason giving up, slowing down to surrender? The moment of uncertainty was exactly what Jason needed. He yanked the wheel hard right and accelerated, ramming his reinforced front quarter panel into the pickup's rear wheel well. The physics were brutal and immediate. The truck's rear end kicked out as the impact disrupted its tracking, sending it into an uncontrolled slide toward the embankment. The driver fought for control, his hands visible through the window as they spun the wheel desperately. For a moment, it looked like he might recover, might pull the truck back from the edge. Then momentum and gravity reached their inevitable conclusion. The pickup's rear wheels dropped over the embankment's edge, and the entire vehicle pivoted on that fulcrum point before tumbling down the rocky slope in a grinding, crashing descent. Jason didn't watch the tumbling wreckage. His eyes stayed locked on the road ahead as he pressed the accelerator to the floor one final time. The Charger responded sluggishly, damaged but not broken, limping forward with the determination of something that refuses to die. Behind him, silence fell except for the wind rushing through the broken rear window and the laboring engine's mechanical heartbeat. The outskirts of Phoenix emerged from the heat shimmer like a mirage becoming solid. Strip malls, gas stations, fast food restaurants. The mundane architecture of American sprawl had never looked so beautiful. Jason merged into traffic. Just another damaged vehicle among thousands, anonymous and unremarkable. Other drivers stared at his shattered window and scraped paint, but nobody stopped, nobody questioned. This was a city where minding your own business was a survival skill. He pulled into a parking lot behind an abandoned warehouse, killed the engine, and sat in sudden silence that felt deafening after hours of mechanical roar. His hands trembled now, post-adrenaline crash making his entire body shake. He had survived, had broken through a coordinated ambush in deadly pursuit through sheer determination and desperate skill. But survival meant nothing if Sarah remained captive. Jason pulled out his phone with shaking fingers and opened the message again. The photo of Sarah bound and terrified burned itself into his memory, but he forced himself to look past the emotional impact and analyze the image forensically. Background details, lighting, shadows, clues that might reveal location. A crack in the concrete wall behind her left shoulder formed a distinctive pattern. A sliver of window in the upper right corner showed a glimpse of urban skyline that looked familiar. His contacts in Phoenix had sent him Sarah's last known location, an apartment complex called Desert Rose on the south side. Jason opened his map app and brought up Street View, scrolling through images until he found the right building. 3rd floor, corner unit. The window angle matched. The wall crack matched. He had a target. A destination, a place where his daughter waited for rescue or death depending on his next choices. The smart play would be calling police, letting professionals handle the extraction. But the text messages proved Sarah's captors had resources, connections, possibly even law enforcement corruption. Official channels meant delays, bureaucracy, risk of word spreading to the wrong people. No, this had to be done quietly, quickly, personally. Jason had spent 2 decades pretending to be an action hero. Now he would discover if any of that training translated to reality. He checked the Charger's damage assessment with the eye of someone who had worked with vehicles his entire career. The rear suspension was compromised, glass gone, body panel scraped and dented. But the engine ran, the wheels turned, and most importantly, it could still move. Good enough. Jason programmed the Desert Rose address into his GPS, took a deep breath that tasted like copper and determination, and restarted the engine. The sun was setting now, painting the Phoenix skyline in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Jason pulled back onto the road, joining the flow of evening traffic with the patience of someone who had already survived the impossible and refused to fail at the final hurdle. Somewhere in the sprawling city, his daughter waited. Men with guns and bad intentions guarded her, confident in their power and position. They didn't know Jason Statham was coming. They didn't know that a father's love was more dangerous than any weapon, more unstoppable than any vehicle. They had made the critical mistake of underestimating what desperation and determination could accomplish. Jason's jaw set in a hard line as the GPS counted down distance to destination. 3 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile. The Desert Rose apartment complex appeared ahead, a shabby 3-story building with faded paint and security bars on windows. Jason parked 2 blocks away and studied the building through his cracked windshield. Lights burned in the corner unit on the 3rd floor. Shadows moved behind curtains. His daughter was in there, scared and hurting, waiting for salvation or damnation. Jason Statham opened his car door and stepped into the warm evening air. The roadblock hadn't stopped him. The bullets hadn't stopped him. The chase and crashes hadn't stopped him. Nothing would stop him now. He was done running, done evading. Now came the hard part, the part where training and desperation collided with reality. Now came the rescue. Now came the reckoning. The Charger sat battered and cooling behind him as he walked toward the Desert Rose with purpose burning in every step. Somewhere above, his daughter waited, and Jason Statham was finally coming home.